While the Allies continue to discuss how to strengthen Ukraine's security, Kiev is betting on its own developments. The Ukrainian company Firepoint Defense has presented the latest cruise missile Flamingo FP-5, which has already been tested and is being prepared for serial production, Politico writes. The main feature of the Flamingo is its range of up to 3,000 kilometers and a warhead weighing over a ton. This means that the missile is capable of hitting any targets in the European territory of Russia. According to the company's CEO and technical director Irina Terekh, the development took less than 9 months, from the first drawings to successful tests in real combat conditions. We didn't want to advertise this project, but the time has come. Flamingo can carry a 1,150 kilogram warhead and cover distances that our other missiles can't. At the same time, its speed is higher than that of previous models. Terekh told Politico, "The unusual history of the name and appearance of the rocket deserves special attention. The first prototypes had a bright pink nose cone. This was a kind of symbol of the role of women in production. Subsequently, the color had to be replaced with a more practical one due to camouflage requirements. However, as Terekh notes, the feminine handwriting in these designs was preserved. The missile has already become a subject of discussion not only among experts, but also in the Kremlin. Russian propaganda is trying to present the Flamingo as a copy of British models, but the fact remains that Ukrainian engineers have created a weapon capable of changing the balance of power in record time. As the missile undergoes combat testing, Moscow is increasingly trying to block any information about it. The West notes that the appearance of such weapons in Ukraine will seriously complicate the plans of dictator Putin to prolong the war. Flamingo can become a deterrent, since it strikes not only physically, but also psychologically, showing that Ukraine is capable of independently creating strategic weapons. According to Politico, the missile is already ready for serial production. More than 200 units have been produced to date, 211 pieces. Given the relative simplicity of the design and the high speed of production, the number of Flamingos in service with the Ukrainian armed forces is expected to increase. Ukraine has begun to conduct systematic work on Russian oil refineries and railway infrastructure. This opinion was expressed on air by military expert, pilot instructor, and retired Ukrainian Armed Forces Colonel Roman Svitan on Radio NV. The expert added that Ukraine began systematic work on the Russian rear only 3 weeks ago. Firstly, in terms of target designation, and secondly, in terms of the methodology and methods of destroying the enemy's rear. Why it is so important for us now to destroy the logistics chain, especially in the rear, at a depth of up to 500 kilometers. Why are we working on the Volgograd and Rostov railway hubs? Because the main traffic of Russian troops of the second summer campaign of 2025 passes through these two hubs. In order to prevent the equipment coming from the Urals from crossing the Volga and getting to the theater of military operations, it is better to stop it in the Volgograd area or intercept it in the Rostov area, Svitan emphasized. Recall, in recent months, Ukraine has intensified its asymmetric warfare strategy by targeting Russian oil infrastructure with drone strikes. These precision attacks represent a calculated approach to undermine Russia's war economy while avoiding certain escalation thresholds. The campaign has disrupted refining operations, altered global crude trade flows, and created ripple effects across international energy markets that could potentially lead to oil price movements. Ukrainian forces have escalated their drone campaign against Russian oil refineries in a strategic move to disrupt Russia's petroleum export capabilities. These attacks have specifically targeted critical processing units within refineries, causing significant operational disruptions and forcing temporary shutdowns at several facilities. Ukraine has demonstrated sophisticated tactical planning in the timing of these refinery strikes. Additionally, the strikes have been coordinated with other military operations along the front lines, creating a multi-domain challenge for Russian defense planners who must allocate limited air defense resources across an expanding threat landscape. The persistent targeting of refining infrastructure has created measurable impacts on Russia's petroleum sector, forcing operational adjustments and triggering market responses that extend beyond the immediate physical damage. Railway networks are the only way that Russia's ground forces and material can travel around the country at a speed and en masse. They were how Russian and Belarusian troops amassed on the border with Ukraine in February 2022 and remain the only way that Russian ground forces can be sustained on the battlefield for a long period of time. Ukraine also understood Russia's reliance on its rail systems and has tried to destroy its own network to prevent Russia from pressing more deeply into Ukrainian territory and to disrupt Russia's railways inside the country. Ukraine's military campaign against Russian oil refineries appears to be gaining momentum. Recently, another attack took out one of the country's largest refineries, Lukoil's Volgograd refinery. As a result, the refinery stopped accepting raw materials. The refinery processes up to 300,000 barrels per day and is one of the main suppliers of fuel to domestic and foreign markets. Even a temporary shutdown could negatively impact supplies to these destinations. With limited domestic storage for finished products, the shutdown means fewer gasoline and diesel supplies to domestic markets and more crude for export, likely through western Russian ports. Exports are therefore expected to rise sharply this month as the refinery and others remain under repair. With Russia's refining network under constant pressure and crude flows being diverted, the coming weeks will test how quickly Moscow can resolve its fuel supply logistics problems, and whether Ukraine's attacks on Russia will begin to impact the global oil balance down the chain, not just Russia's domestic supply. Russia's fuel crisis is deepening. Moscow has introduced gasoline limits and is being forced to urgently buy fuel from Belarus, according to Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service. Russia is forced to urgently purchase fuel from Belarus, which is ramping up supplies and taking advantage of the situation, the intelligence service said. It noted that after Crimea, Zabaikalsky Krai and Primorye, the gasoline shortage has now reached the Kuril Islands. As of August the 20th, restrictions were introduced there as well, a maximum of 10 litres per person, with priority given to security services, emergency services and businesses. For the population, this is yet another confirmation that the fuel crisis is rapidly worsening, intelligence added. Earlier, the media reported that Ukrainian strikes on oil refineries disabled part of Russia's refining capacity, leaving the market with an acute gasoline shortage. Since the beginning of July, Ukraine has struck at least 4 large refineries in Russia. According to experts, the current campaign differs from previous ones in that the strikes are targeting enterprises in a key region, which could put them out of operation for a long time, even forever. Sergei Vakulenko, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, said that in 2024, the attacks had been numerous but scattered, usually limited to a single plant, and that the damage had been quickly repaired. According to broker Finam, at least 10% of Russia's refining capacity has been knocked out. Strikes on railway infrastructure in the central part of the country have exacerbated the situation, causing train delays and fuel supply disruptions. To curb price increases, the Russian government completely banned gasoline export on July the 28th. But even this did not help to fully satisfy domestic demand.